Over the last few years, you have likely seen a lot of people talking about whether bottom up or top down is the best approach when it comes to emotional, nervous system, or trauma healing. So, which one really is better? And what do they really mean? Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thanks so much for joining me. If you're new, make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. All right, so I have started and stopped recording this video probably 4 times already because I have a lot of thoughts about this and I keep kind of getting off track a little bit. So I'm going to try really hard to stay focused on this particular part of it. So if you follow any sort of social media or constantly looking online for information, you've likely seen a lot of things, a lot of people talking about how in order to heal, we have to focus on bottom-up approaches versus top-down. And some of these people might be mental health professionals, but what I'm seeing is mostly people who are not mental health professionals. And I think a lot of this comes from kind of the mainstreaming of books like The Body Keeps the Score and Peter Levine's book called Awakening the Tiger, I think, or something along that line. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But a lot of just regular everyday people have been reading those books. And so I think that's where a lot of these conversations are coming from, a lot of the social media posts, blog posts, that sort of thing. So I think first I want to just kind of talk a little bit about what does that really mean. So bottom-up approach generally is going to mean that you focus on the body. So it's more somatic in nature. You focus on what's happening in the body. You focus on calming what's happening in your body, learning to feel safe in your body, that sort of thing. Top-down approach is focusing more on the cognitive aspects. So the thoughts, the beliefs, but generally it's going to be more about the thoughts. And often the way it's referred to in this kind of discussion is it's just focused on changing your thoughts. Well, if you've followed me at all, you know that it's not just changing your thoughts, right? You have to change your beliefs. Healing is about changing what you believe about who you are. It's not just about changing your thoughts, because your thoughts, your automatic thoughts, are a direct result of what your core beliefs are. So, having said that, top down versus bottom up. So body versus mind, basically, right? So thoughts versus what's happening in your body. So I would hope, honestly, that people who are helping you heal from emotional trauma, childhood trauma, almost anything really, that they would have an understanding that it's not either or. It's and both. It has to be. It has to be. And really, if whoever is helping you doesn't fully grasp that, honestly, that would be a little concerning to me. Now, they might have more of a focus of one or the other. Like they might put a little bit more emphasis on one or the other. But if their focus really is on one versus the other, then you're only doing part of the work. And the thing about healing, and you've heard me say this so many times, it's a process and a practice, right? And so much of that process and practice is incorporating both simultaneously. It's not one or the other. It's both simultaneously. And that is incredibly important. That is how we shift what we ultimately believe about who we are and the world around us. So our sense of safety, our sense of trust with others. It helps us change what we believe about who we are, which changes everything. So it isn't either or, it's both. We have to do both. So if we just focus on our body, then while we might be able to do something that can help calm us in a moment or for a brief period of time, the ideas, the beliefs, the fears, all of that is cognitive. Even if it's not conscious, it's still cognitive. If we're not also working on what beliefs are connected with those feelings, what fears are connected with those feelings or physiological responses, then what we're doing is temporary. And the same is the other way around. If we are just focusing on our thoughts and we're not incorporating our entire being, our entire experience as a being, then we are really missing it as well. And that's why, if you follow me on social media or have ever been in my group or anything like that, it's fairly rare. Now, sometimes in individual sessions, this might not be the case necessarily, but it's fairly rare that I will, as a practice, just suggest one or the other. In fact, I will often say, and I've even said it here, I think on occasion, like, notice what comes up for you in your thoughts or in your body. Because for some people, it might come up more strongly in your body. For others, it might come up more strongly in your mind. And depending on the circumstance, depending on the day, depending on how you're feeling, depending on so many things, it could be the other one. It's both, because we respond as thinking individuals with full capacity of our cognitive abilities. We are experiencing both. So if we're just focused on thoughts, right? This is kind of like where affirmations come in, or the idea of change your thoughts, change your whatever. I can't think of that quote right now. But basically the idea of change your thoughts, change your life, right? But we can't just change our thoughts. And I've talked about this many times. We have to, our thoughts, the thoughts that we tend to think over and over again, are a direct result, are automatic, based on our core beliefs. And changing our core beliefs is a process of deprogramming what you have always believed and have what you believe as evidence to support what you believe. We have to deprogram that so that you create space to believe, to see, to take in what is true and real. That's all cognitive. You cannot do that if you are just focused on calming your nervous system, because those beliefs are what is connected to your nervous system responding in the way that it does. And that's part of the reason why, like if you've read Peter Levine's work, part of the reason why animals in nature can shake things off, right? And go on about their day. Now, they know instinctively that they are always on alert, right? But they're not living from that place of fear. But they can shake that off because they don't have the same cognitive ability that we do. They don't hold on to fears about people judging us. They don't hold on to them. They don't hold on to memories of being deeply hurt or betrayed by somebody. They don't fear trusting people because or things, other animals, because they just live their life, right? They don't have this whole narrative about anything. So they can just shake it off and move on with their life. But as thinking humans, as emotional humans, we can't separate that out. Sometimes it might be nice to be able to do that, but that's just not who we are as a being. So if, for example, you are going into a new situation, maybe you're going to meet a new group of people that might be friends, or you're going into a new work situation, or a first date, something like that. You're taking all of your beliefs that you've held on to your entire life with you into that situation. So if you fear not being good enough, if you feel like an imposter, if you have shame, and we all have shame, so many different things, those beliefs are going to come into that situation with you, whether you're consciously thinking about it or not. So naturally, if there's any apprehension, fear, uncertainty, doubt, self-judgment going on, your body is going to respond to that, right? Because they're connected. They can't be separated out. They're connected. So when your body responds to that, there's likely some sense of unease, and that can look very different for everybody and for you on a particular day or situation. But there's something that happens in your body that helps you know that you're feeling that fear, that apprehension, the doubt, the shame, whatever it is. And typically when it's any of those types of feelings, the feeling can be pretty strong. Maybe it is a fluttering in your chest. Maybe you feel nauseous. Maybe you feel a constriction, a tightness. Maybe you're having difficulty breathing, like your breath is very shallow, or you're holding your breath. That is all a physiological response to the situation. But that's not innate. We fear that situation. We worry about that situation. We feel shame about that situation because of those core beliefs. So if we're just focusing on the body and we do breathing exercises or some polyvagal techniques or something like that, we might be able to help calm our system for a period of time. Maybe it's a few seconds, maybe it's a little while. But we're not doing anything to change what we believe. So it's going to continue to come up because it's deeply connected. We cannot separate them. So how do you then ultimately change it? And I'm not going to try not to get into tons of this, but just kind of briefly so that you understand why we need both. So you've heard me talk about this process or the healing journey as a process and a practice, right? And part of that is practicing becoming aware of what our thoughts are, the meaning that we've attached to things in the past, and the meaning that we attach to things in our current circumstances. That's all cognitive. So when you are, let's say you're going into a new job, and maybe you have fear about not fitting in, not being able to do the job well, being worried that your boss is going to think that they've made a mistake in hiring you. So even if you're not consciously playing out those fears repeatedly through your mind, which for a lot of people, they're going to know that those are the fears that they're having. But for a lot of people, you might just notice feeling something in your body. You might even feel completely numb or disconnected. But that's kind of a feeling too. It just doesn't have a lot that goes along with it. So you may be aware of what's happening on a cognitive level. So in your thoughts, you may be aware of what you're saying to yourself, or you may not. You may be aware of what's happening in your body, but you may not. But if there's any sort of fear or doubt or anything like that, there is something happening probably on both levels. Again, and it could be numbness. So part of what you do then going into that job, that first day, is you kind of talk yourself through it, right? Like, so you've got this, you had a great recommendation from your last employer, you always do really well on your performance evaluations, they recruited you, like there's some different things, right, that you could say to yourself to talk yourself through that, doing some reality testing, which is, you could say, a top-down approach, reality testing. Although you can also incorporate that from a bottom-up approach in a sense as well. But you basically talk yourself through it, right? So you can do that on a cognitive level. But if you don't believe that, if you are just saying it for the sake of saying it, kind of like doing an affirmation, then because there's a disconnect with what you believe in what you're saying, you're likely going to create even more in your body, more fear, more apprehension, more desire to run the other direction. So incorporating both top down, bottom up, you're aware of what your thoughts are and you're aware of what's happening in your body. Ideally, you would actually be paying attention to that as soon as you start thinking about going into a new job. Okay, these are the kinds of fears that I tend to have. This is how it tends to show up in my body. And you start practicing some things before that first day, because that helps begin to shift the energy in your mind, how quickly those thoughts come, the intensity at which those thoughts come, and the same for what's happening in your body. So as you're doing that, you're incorporating both mind and body. And if you are able to talk yourself through, okay, you take into consideration that they recruited you, that you've done really well on your previous performance evaluations, okay, but you might still be feeling a little anxiety. So then you do a technique that can help calm your system a little bit, whether that's breathing or getting outside in nature and going for a walk, whatever it is. But you're doing both at the same time, because you're basically then retraining your entire system, your mind and your body. You're retraining your system to have the fears and the feelings together, present together. And then as you calm your mind and your body, that's happening together. And that is in large part how healing happens. When you go into it and you feel like, okay, I can do this, and I know it's not going to be as bad as I think it is, or I'm afraid it will be, it's going to be okay. I feel like this a lot when I try something new, but it always turns out okay, or almost always turns out okay. You take some calming breaths. You are retraining both your mind and your body, that you can go into a situation that feels scary and be safe, that you have the power within yourself to be able to do that. So that's what incorporating both can look like. And that can be true no matter really what the situation is that you're going into. Now, I'm not talking about like life and death types of situations, because that's about survival. I'm talking about healing, everyday kinds of life types of things. But we incorporate both. That is how we heal. And to think that we can heal at a deep level, at a core level, by doing just one or the other, is a real disservice to the power of this process, and absolutely to the people that are working in this process. And if we are somebody who is trying to help people in that, we are doing an incredible disservice to them for not really understanding how these two things go together and what it takes to be able to do both simultaneously. So I'm feeling pretty proud of myself that I didn't end up going off on that tangent. Maybe that's another video for another time, but I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's okay if you disagree with me. I think it could actually, if you want to share how you disagree or why you disagree, it could actually be, I think, a really helpful, beneficial conversation to have. Like I said, this is my perspective, my opinion, based on personal experience, but predominantly based on professional experience. But it's okay to disagree, and we all have different approaches to things. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments, whether you can relate to this, whether you have an experience of it, or just your feelings in general. Maybe even what you noticed coming up for you in your thoughts or in your body. So let me know, share in the comments, and if you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up so other people can find it too. And again, if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure to do so and click the bell for notifications. Thanks so much for watching. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.